That's what radio is. Good morning. This is Babz Rawls. It's 9 o'clock or a little after 9 or somewhere around 9 o'clock. And you're listening to Love Babz Love Talk. Today we are talking, and I'm talking to my good friend, Dr. Deqo Mohamed. How are you?
Good morning.
Happy Ramadan.
Happy Ramadan.
I'm surprised that you could even be here because she's been traveling. She got caught up in the storm. It's been harrowing, but she's here.
I'm glad to be here.
How are you?
I'm good.
So Dr. Deqo Mohamed is so accomplished. Black Girl Rock Woman of the Year, Glamour Woman of the Year, Yale World Fellow.
Thank you.
Your mom is equally powerful. Your sister is powerful. Like just powerful Somali women.
Tried our best. Thank you for having me.
I love to have you. And you have quite a bit of a story. You have a very interesting and compelling story.
You know, the life throws you a stone, so you have to handle with it. So I'm born and raised in Somalia until age of 16. Then I had to, my country fall apart for civil war. So I had to travel from Somalia to whole East Africa, Kenya, Uganda. Then after that, I went to Russia. So 10 years of my life, the best life from 17 to 27. I went there for medical school, then all the way from Russia to North Dakota. So just a world traveler. So I enjoy the opportunity. I'm lucky to I got a lot of opportunity comparing to my fellow Somalis because the country didn't had opportunity to give a young woman for education or opportunity. So I'm lucky to have my parents. I'm lucky to have people, friends around the world. So
now your mother is a doctor in her own right.
Yep.
Very powerful, well known, and considered a world leader of sorts. Yep.
My mom is those real hardworking African mothers, and then grew up in during before independence, so she got also opportunity to become a doctor by Russia and come back home. One of the first actually gynecologists in Somalia. That's how it tells how our country is very young. So in 1971, she became one of the first gynecologists.
So it was no brainer that she would seek higher education for her daughters.
So that was her commitment, not only higher education, whole family is supposed to be doctors. So it's like me and my sister and all are physicians. So it's like, yeah, we need more doctors. As much as I could make everyone a physician, I will make it. But on top of that, she's a lawyer. So she seen her.
Your mother?
My mother is
I
also
didn't know
a lawyer.
she's a.
Yeah.
So she is Claire and Cliff Huxtable together.
It's struggle being in Somalia, and you could see in most of Africa, colonizations and a problem broken and system is broken and human rights. So she was just forced to try to cover women's rights on that time in early 70s. So that's how she became.
Well, that couldn't have been an easy thing. Like, no. It's not easy now at 2018. So I know in 1970, it was probably almost unheard of. Like, she probably was breaking all kinds of norms and rules and kinds of things. So
she did, but the great thing, she paved the road for me. So for me and my sister, it's much easier today to be a leader in our community because they have seen for last 45 years my mom being a doctor and running whole things and creating things as a woman leader. So we're happy to have her.
So you all are accomplished doctors. You could live anywhere. You could live anywhere in the world, and yet you all are committed to doing work in Somalia?
That's my mom's passion. It's like if you don't do it, who's gonna do it?
Mhm.
You know, you have yeah. You brought this world and you got opportunity to give back, so you need to give back. That's how words, you know, all the time. So me being here in early, I think 1994, I arrived to U.S. So after 2 years, I couldn't continue. She's like calling me. It's like, you cannot have a luxury. You know, your people needs you. You know, Africa needs you. You need to be back. That's what.
You know, I could hear that coming out of your mother's. I could hear it in your mother's voice.
So it was amazing, and I'm blessed to be back, and really, it's very rewarding. And
Now you're a naturalized American citizen.
Yes, I am.
And you live in the Peach State. You live in the hot Atlanta.
Yes.
And you married with kids, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And yet you stay connected to Somalia.
I'm there 10 months of a whole year, so I'm only 2 months in U.S. Trying to be a good citizen, paying my taxes and coming end of the year. So
tell me, what kinds of things are you doing in Somalia? What are you and your sisters and your mothers, what are y'all are I know, but I want other people to hear it.
So in 1983, my mom built a one-room clinic. So her goal was to improve the rural health and to make sure every mother delivers safe environment, because that's how my grandmother died, giving a birth on her 7th child. So my mom committed like no other child will suffer what I went through. So we were just focusing in early 80s. But 1991, when Civil War broke out, we just had to do more than that. My mom created whole village behind the hospital. So if there is almost 500 families, so we forced, like, we need to find water. You know, we had to dig our own well, and it just add up and become this unique and beautiful small village. So
and nobody bothered her. Like the folks who were having the wars wasn't messing with Dr. Hawa.
Several times, actually. It's not only one time. The hospital was attacked 3 times in our village, and every time she stood up in her ground and telling you, yeah, you little kids, you know what you have done. You know, yeah, you're a man, you know how to run, but have you ever cared for these people? So she's super brave. So basically, we're lucky to have her in our community. She's the shield for everything. And at the same time, she's the caring mother. So she got this amazing 2 characters where she can be a strong defender, you know, woman, and is another hand, the very soft side of her and caring for her community. So
y'all go from a 1-room clinic. Now you got a 400-bed hospital.
Yep.
You got a school. I mean, you got some stuff going on.
That's what it does. 27 years of work and building it. Now it's 400-bed room. Half of that is pediatric, another half is maternal care. We have a school where I started, which is my bride 10 years ago now. So we have a 1,000 capacity, you know, children. We have 800 from primary and 200 from high school. So, and we growing big, and we're excited to have next year might be in any continuation of education, and the hospital is growing and the community is flourishing.
So how are y'all doing all this? How does this handful of women create a whole? Now this is the African proverb for real. It takes a village. Not only does it take, y'all created a village so that it could take a village to raise up a child. How are y'all doing this?
Just wake up every morning and do as you can. That's my mom's like, work until you fall apart. So.
You work until you fall?
Yeah, so just non-stop.
Oh my God.
We try our best. We really, it's a really community a village. So it's not about where you manage and you get funding from somewhere. We don't get any support from the government or with any. We just raise funding in different ways with the community. We try to do our best.
So why doesn't the government fund you? Is it stable now? I mean, do you feel like it's
a post-conflict is getting, you know, there, but they have no capacity and funding to support anywhere else except, you know, the system of government. So the government is still not able to pay their employee. So it's the last resources to think about funding or going forward.
So y'all are providing medical care and educational support or education.
We provide in free shelters in our land where the people live. We provide in education. We provide in healthcare, water, and sanitation. There we have our own well. So we try to, we employed less than 10% of community are working in our schools and hospitals and security guards. So and we're trying to improve and get more jobs for them. So the goal is to be more sustainable and not dependent on outside.
So is this your life's work?
That's my life's work.
And you, I mean, seriously, is this what you imagine yourself doing?
Not really in 100%, but I could imagine now how I can transform my community when I grew up and work in this for the last 10 years. I imagine just being a historian, you know. I love to listen people and know more and teach in the universities or something like that. My mom's like, no, this is what you meant to be, you know, as an African mother. So maybe when I retire, I can become historian and read books and biographs and enjoy.
When do you have time? You don't have any time to read a book now.
No,
maybe in between these flights, you know, you could pick up a book or listen to one.
Actually, I check my emails and respond to the emails and try to do that. Well, when I'm on ground, I don't have time to do that.
So now what kind of medicine do you practice?
I'm a gynecologist.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, but I do everything in Somalia. So I worked with the Doctors Without Borders in our hospital in about 3 years doing all pure pediatric because we were lacking a pediatrician. So when you're in Africa, you're every specialist. You just have to know everything. I do a lot of surgery. I perform a lot of surgery. I become sometimes a dentist to make sure to drain and remove a tooth. So it's just like you have to acquire every skills you can get, and you have to have.
So you're the surgeon, you're the dentist, you're the pediatrician, the gynecologist, and whatever else is needed.
Yeah, I was a neurosurgeon one time. I did a brain surgery for the trauma, and I was telling my friends, you know, this is the coolest surgery I ever did, and I'm not a neurosurgeon. So I did with the whole 10 books open in my operation theater. So I'm reading, and it's like, okay, make sure I don't kill this guy. Let me do.
Lord, I don't even know. That's like some stuff you see in the movies. Right? Like that's movie quality kind of.
You don't even see in the movies, you know, the cases you see in Africa and the remote areas. They don't teach in medical school. So you have to go your own kind of medical school and learn everything. What I did medical school in Russia, and they never taught me tropical diseases and malaria and all that. So
really?
It's just completely, they will teach you, but you have never seen any patient with malaria or any severe infection we face in Africa. So when you go back to Africa practice, you just go all over again, another residency and another.
So it's like starting from scratch.
Yep.
So tell me about living in Russia. What was that like? I mean, I know it's white as all get out. It ain't Somalia, I know.
No, the first concern is to survive the cold. You know, you completely forgot, you know, you're surrounded in the 100% white community and all that. But it was like how I can survive, you know, it's extremely cold. And we're not.
Is it cold all the time? Not all the time. All the time?
Almost 9 months of the year.
Oh, my God.
Cold, so the snow started melting right now, like end of May, mid of May, until May, there's snow everywhere. So it's just you have a very short window of June and early July, and August is already getting in fall.
Who would want to live there? I don't.
But it's a beautiful country with a lot of rich history, and you know, people are wonderful. It's not.
So do you feel connected to Russia?
I do. I didn't went back since my graduation, but I still email. I still have friends. I still communicated with my professors.
And you speak Russian?
I speak Russian fluently, actually.
Wow. Wow. So you're there in Russia, you go to med school, and then what happens?
For the last 2 years of my residency, actually, before I started my residency, I applied my residency in UNHCR, UN organization, to sponsor my residency in Russia. Then I discovered a whole other window. You know, I was 8 years almost with the students in different environments. So when I got to the community, I discovered there's a huge number of refugees, immigrants in Russia. They have no rights, they have no documents, and they were suffering. So I just become activist and work hard there. And we created an organization. And
so you in Russia, and you take up the charge and the cause of refugees.
yeah, I was working refugee clinic. It's one of my requirements.
This is in your DNA.
It is in my DNA. I grew up, so it was amazing when I look back. I don't know how I did it. My full time in residence and working with refugees, you know, the energy of being young and energetic. And my mom is, I think my mom's head is there. It's like you're calling. So I grew up in a socialist family. So my both parents went to school in Russia in early 60s. So I grew up. This is, you have to give back.
Yeah.
That is your calling.
Work.
Yeah, work.
Work is the
give
joy.
back,
Work
share it.
is the everything.
Yeah, and she will say it's not the money who would create you, it's the work. And then there's always saying, and Russian saying, is that the city makes beautiful their statues, but the work makes beautiful the human being.
Wow.
It's not about your dress or your money. It's your work. What you have done, that would make you more beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the purpose. I grew up in my home. So
So what
I
was it like
believe-
to be Muslim in Russia?
I wasn't wearing hijab that time. I wasn't hijabi, so I could easily blend, and I could be. The biggest part was not being a Muslim; is just being a black. So it was
Okay.
getting harder.
It didn't matter what you was.
No,
The black part was.
It was getting.
But there
harder.
are black people in Russia.
There-
Lots.
There is a lot of students and diplomats and some business, but there is not a lot of community actually living there, as a black community in Moscow, in a big city. So we had to struggle, and there was a lot of skinheads. So we have to be careful which ways we take in, which trains, which time we're traveling.
Because they are dangerous
They're very dangerous.
to black people.
Yeah, it
and
was
and to
very-
some of the Russians too, they were dangerous.
It is till today. So that's how we created. I'm very proud working with UNHCR. We created settlement program, and we resettle a lot of African refugees or immigrants in Russia. To US, to Europe, or back to their homes. We make sure they are safe, because we were really losing our lives.
Wow. So, what was the government support like for refugees in Russia?
None. It's basically you got a small paper where you could get harassed. Also, although you have a paper says you're refugee and you have a status to stay this country, you cannot find a job. You cannot rent a house. So it's useless.
So what do people do?
They struggle and they do all illegal things. They find maybe students from Africa to rent for them apartment. They have to do a lot of hard work to get as survivor. So it was very harsh, and most of them are in a prison. They just put because you don't have effective document, or they capture them when they doing these illegal businesses. So we had to struggle. They cannot go through the medical, hospitals. All the hospitals are
So
free.
refugees are not allowed to seek medical treatment. So
No.
they just expected people to just die
Yeah.
or
So-
suffer?
Because you don't have correct papers, they will not admit you to the hospital, or they will
Mhm.
not see you. So one good thing we had, it was a refugee clinic that set up by UN. So we didn't have even capacity. When we transfer into the big hospitals, we have to accommodate with them and make sure, they're safe, they were admitted, they were treated. So that was my job in Russia.
So when you left Russia, where did you go?
In North Dakota, in the United States.
And that's where you did your residency?
No, I did my residency in Somalia,
Okay.
in Russia, I mean.
So what
I-
brought you to North Dakota?
I was resettled as a refugee because of that environment.
Oh, I see.
That
Okay.
environment in Russia, and I was lucky to be resettled a small, town, Grand Forks, in the University of Grand Forks, and got right away in my environment of medical field. I could work in the lab for research, prepared my exams and everything. I worked in one of the big hospital laboratory. I didn't had a lesson, but I still could be in my environment to get my medical lesson here. So it was I was very few lucky refugees who settled this country.
So how long were you in North Dakota?
2 years. I couldn't handle after 2 years.
I can imagine. So you leave North Dakota because
I moved to Georgia. I went to vacation in Atlanta, and it
oh, that's
felt
right.
home.
You told me the story. You went to
Yeah.
it, and it was like night and day.
Yeah.
The weather, the people. You're like, I didn't know there was this many black people.
I know.
I remember you told me that story. I thought that was hilarious.
That's
You didn't
what
know
it
there was that many
does.
black people in America.
Yeah, no, I did not. So,
Well, Atlanta is about as black as it's going to get.
yeah.
Seriously.
And I'm glad to be there. I'm
Yes.
happy.
So it's good. The weather is nice. It's always warm,
And green.
green, so it's pretty good. All right. So you get to Atlanta. I know you get married through all of this. At some point, you meet a man, and you were telling me this story. You met him in Switzerland, a Somalian in
Mhm.
Switzerland.
Raised in Switzerland. That's
Like
what
you don't meet him in Somalia, you meet him in Switzerland.
It's
What
a
are the
fate.
odds of that?
It is a fate. And we were. He's a good friend of mine, so I just married my friend. The work I do and the environment I go through, as a woman, you need to have a strong supporter,
Mhm.
someone who not getting intimidated for all your work and status and in your name in the community and be your side. It was very hard, so I got married late, but it worked perfectly because I found the right person.
That's right. Not late. Right on time.
It's lucky.
And how many kids do y'all have?
We have 6 kids. Six.
And they're adopted.
all of them. Yeah.
Yes. See, because we had this conversation too, because I have 4 and they're all adopted.
Yeah.
And
You
so
were
we have
given
that in common.
It's,
yes.
It's a blessing to have them.
It's a wonderful thing to adopt children. And even though I'm struggling with struggling with my children, but I think the struggle was mostly, it's kids they're becoming their own independent selves and they don't know how to do it.
That's true. The teenager time is the toughest time.
Because I think back to when I was a teenager, I was like, you know what, my mother really should have put a pillow over my head. She really, but because she loved me, she didn't do that.
Yeah.
So I have to sort of remember that grace that somebody spared me, so therefore I must spare them. So tell me, what do you go back and forth? You spend 10 months out of the year in Somalia.
Yes.
And so on top of the duties that you have to do, do you have to raise money? Do you have to get in front of people and say, look, we need your support?
That is true. That's the hardest part of my work. The 2 months I'm out of the country, mostly in US and Europe, I just go and ask money, which is I'm not wired to do. And culturally, it's not my training. It's kind of difficult to say, I needed money to do what I do. So, but I'm getting there. I'm learning. So we're struggling to raise. So this month, it's a Ramadan. It started today in my country. And this is the biggest community fundraising I do. So because we have meals. Usually we do meals in the hospital. But in a Ramadan, we do meals for everyone.
Okay.
So we have open meal program, and it's tough. So I'm away for this month at home, raising funding all the time, making sure we got feed at least 300 people a day.
Mm-hmm.
And which is
wow.
It might sound a lot of numbers of people, but it is a small amount of money you could feed that much of people. It's just $150. It's 50 cents per person.
How do you do that? How does that, what does that look like?
It is the most amazing time of the year, I think, in a village, and I'm sad to miss it. So we cook all day, the community gathering together. We cook for the family who's cooking. We pay them some incentive, so they get income for whole that month, which is we try to hire non-unemployed people to cook, and it's a cooking, it's a feast. It's a beautiful time, like maybe 20 or 30 people gathering together, cooking for this 300. And when it gets sunset, we're trying to distribute all this food, and everyone sits down and eats, and we make sure we feed everyone traveling. So it's one of amaziest time of the year in my village. So you can see the families and union and gathering and the power of community in that month.
Is your mother still working?
My mom.
She's not retired.
She's retired now.
She is retired?
For the last 4 years.
Thank God.
She will be working if she didn't get her stroke, I think. So she'll be working until her.
And she lives in Somalia.
She lives in Somalia.
Okay. And
Or-
so who lives with her? She live alone? She's got
She lives
more
with
sisters?
my sister,
Okay.
with her kids. My kids are there, so she's really African grandmother. She wants to have around her like 10, 15 grandchildren. It's like, you need to give me more, you know, I need more.
Like, look, Mom, we can't run a hospital and be popping out babies.
Yeah.
So who's running things while you're here?
My sister is obviously, and we have a couple doctors running the hospital. One of my, I really proud of my last 5 years achievement. Make sure the village run is without me. So I was trying to find a successor, things, but still I manage at nighttime. I call them. I will make sure I email them. They got things running smoothly, but they're self-sustained, which is I'm very proud of it. Make sure they handle their matters and their work, and things are running smoothly.
It sounds like a good model for perhaps other places that have to contend with a huge refugee population.
Yep, it's we don't call our it's in Somalia. It's internally displaced refugees when they go out from their own country.
That's good to know.
So internally displaced people is in my country. It's 1.5 million. So it is.
So
sad.
that means the Civil War or whatever the dust up was displaced all these people who already live there, who are Somalian and can't go back or whatever was there is no longer there.
Some of them didn't had before homes. Some of them were farmers or they had homes and they had to sell because they were starving. So basically they ended up being homeless, and some of them completely lost their families. So there's like 1 or 2 left from whole family lineage. So that's what war does, and it's devastating. 1.5 million people basically homeless and stateless, and moving one city to another where it's opportunity, and most of them are in a capital city where we are only 20 miles away. And because that's where you can get some food and jobs. So having as almost serving 90,000, almost 100,000, it's less than 1% of that population we're serving. So it's
so what happened? Where are those other people? What are they doing? I mean, do you know?
We advocate. There's several camps, and the whole country knows them, and we try to make sure they get fed by and get jobs and resettled as much as possible. One of my biggest goals, like, we need to give homes these people, and we need to make sure they went back to their village. We cannot just run around and move one city and another city. So we do receive waves. So we have settled as in our village. We have permanent, almost 20,000 people permanent there, families. But we receive all the time this wave. If there's a war happens somewhere or there's a drought,
they find their way.
Yep, because we have a perfect setting. We have a water, we have a hospital, we have a school. So we always get this extra numbers when things happen, when things go wrong. So we're ready to take up.
So Dr. Deqo, Mohamed, do you concern yourself with the possibility of another civil war or some other kind of conflict? I mean, do you concern yourself with that?
It could happen any minute because we have a society, basically 2 generations lost. We are not capable running ourselves. We hadn't get opportunity. As soon as our colonizer left the country didn't have the capacity to run itself. So, and we were struggling one dictator to another. Now it's a civil war. So it's a very fragile state. So everything can happen. So that's why I'm very passionate about education, and all about my school is make sure we raise the tomorrow's leaders, give the opportunity I got to my community and make sure they run this country as much as possible in the right direction. Because this is what happens when you have a dictator or someone who has with the zero knowledge. So we had a time where almost 80% in our parliament were illiterate. They had no clue how to write and read, but they were there because of the clan division and the system that our, you know, Western world colonizer divided us. You know, you have to be in a certain clan to get a seat in a parliament. Instead of you have to be in a parliament to represent this district.
But that illiteracy makes you very vulnerable.
Yep.
To anybody coming in and just whatever.
Anybody coming in and
take over, abuse power, and
stealing the country. Yeah, it's just.
That's a lot to contend with. That is a lot to contend with. So what do you think? What do you think the Western world gets wrong about what is happening in Somalia?
I think what's happening in whole Africa. I think. The West gets wrong for whole continent. African continent is a very wealthy continent and very rich in resources and also in the people. So if we follow respected our culture and tradition and our system, we managed our life before, you know, colonizers came, and we know how to survive, and we were a very rich continent. But we destroy all our culture and respect and hard working, and we replace these things. It's not belong to us, you know. We don't know what this state set up and all how you have to be as West as you could get. So leaving all your culture and your tradition back. So I think we got lost in the middle of it, and that's how we see the hierarchy and the problem. And in Somalia, West forgets. Now we have a crisis with Al-Shabaab and Islamists. All this came to Somalia since 2005. Before that, we didn't had. And we are purely African more than Islam, but it's like we culturally love and embedded in our tradition of blending with the coastal line and Muslim tradition and African tradition, and it's a unique. I love my country and I love my people. They're resilient and their diversity and nomads and having animal rares, but we don't appreciate that. We try to follow culture that does not belong to us, and the
and you think that becomes a problem?
Yeah, and it's a dictate. We never got we had a discussion with my friend. We never got to handle with our, you know, problems. We were told to do. We told what to do. We told how to run the government. So still our, you know, bosses, whoever own still us, they're telling us how to run our own.
I don't know, Dr. Deqo, you sound like you could run the country too. They would be wise to tap you or your sisters to run the country too. You know. So, how can people help? Like, how can citizens help? How can people help? How do they do that? Is there some place where people can go to a website or call you? I don't want people calling you, but how do people can help?
They can call me
what
while
makes
I'm
sense?
here. I think you could go on our website. It's called Dr. Hawa Abdi Foundation. It's dhaf.org. And you can donate. You can know our work and the work we do and support there. We have a Facebook also, Dr. Hawa Abdi Foundation. You can follow in the Twitter and all the social media, and just to be involved and be part of the program, because without, you know, the support, we wouldn't be able to do what I do.
Now, last night I was at a dinner party in your honor. My sorority sister and good friend, Dr. Maisa Akbar, and her husband, Rasan Akbar, hosted a dinner party with some really interesting, wonderful people around this table, around food and drink. And they gifted you some laptops.
Yeah, it was one of amazing thing I love about New Haven and the people in it. It's a beautiful community, and a lot of doctors, psychologists, you know, have a communication for my field. Yeah, the laptop we received, it will transform our medical, you know, how we treat our patient and how we educate our.
Just 4 laptops will be that transformative.
Yes. We will communicate directly. We will have opportunity, our midwives and nurses communicate directly to here in Chatham University in Pittsburgh to get a direct support and how they can diagnose better, how they can treat their patient better, and how they can communicate with their patients. So we completely transforming the approach of healthcare, and we're doing it online.
So you got supporters texting me right now telling me if 15 of my listeners donate $10 each, they will together provide 300 meals.
Yes.
$20 will provide school supplies for a semester. Oh my God.
Yep.
Folks can also Google and find her TED Talk, which I thought blew me out of the water. And press coverage in New York, the Daily Beast, Glamour Magazine, and others. So, yes. All right. So this is near and dear to my heart because you're near and dear to my heart.
Thank
So we're
you.
going to try to do what we can to sort of support this effort because, girl, you're doing this real life work, and we need to be able to
Thank you.
support that.
I could do because people of like you around. So
Okay. So we're gonna keep that in our hearts and minds, and I'm gonna do my part to make sure we get that information out there and get people to donate. Now, so I got about 10, 20 minutes left. So tell me, Dr. Mohamed, how do you take the time to take care of yourself? What do you do?
That's a good question.
Because I know listen, you had to get over here on a flight that was like hellish because the weather had just messed everything up. And you had delays upon delay. But that's not new. I'm sure that's not a new thing.
No.
And going back and forth to the continent cannot be an easy thing.
It is not easy thing. It's not easy. Really, it's even traveling within the continent. It is terrible. I had to go to South Africa, and it took me almost a day and night to get there, 24 hours, and because of the system, how things work. But I love and I'm very passionate to know more in the continent and to travel and to spread the work I do. It is difficult, but in the same time, it is a time. It sounds weird, but it's a time to myself when I'm traveling. So this is the time I can get me and myself and relax and think, even in the middle of airport and chaos. But it's me and my thoughts and traveling, and then I try to think and write it down, something, say like how I do next, how I can connect this program to this, because I don't get that luxury when I'm home with 6 kids, with my medical work and everything. So it's my space. It's something new I'm learning, taking care of yourself. It's a crucial to do or to give back.
Yes.
You need to be gentle and nice to yourself. So and learn how your limit. The thing we say we need to women can't get all, or we don't have all. I don't believe that. You don't have to have all. You just have to be in a moment and enjoy what you do, and you don't stress where you're not and what you cannot do. So this is one thing I'm learning. If I'm here, I try to enjoy with my friends, with you, and try to fundraise and have fun and remember my dance moves in the college time. So that's the last time I danced.
Oh, we've got to get more dancing in our lives.
Yeah, and when you're back home, it's just you do your work. You try to be serious and same time fun and contribute and give back. So it's just something. Just to be there and do your 100% where you are. It's just don't worry where you're not. So
what is the dream for you, Deqo? Like, what's the thing what's out there on the horizon that you want to do that is calling you, or that you've always wanted to do and haven't done?
It's
besides saving Somalia.
Besides
which
saving
which is wonderful.
Continent.
Besides saving the whole continent.
Yeah. One of, I think, my goal now and the vision is to make sure and our youth and young people in Africa are aware of their assets. We have a huge capacity. We have a beautiful continent, beautiful people and environment. So we need to take care of that. So one of my goal is maybe make sure we understood that we don't have to take what our colonizer tell us. You know, we can do our stuff our own way, our beautiful tradition. You know, we can take care of our people, and we don't have to be in news all the time. Just what kills me, you know, what my drive is, seeing every African country, every African starving child in the media or in the journal or in any international NGO. When you Google their website, its first child pops up. It's a poor African child, and that really frustrates me. And it's like how we had ended up here when we have this beautiful.
Because that's the vision around the world, and people think that that's all Africa is: starving, desperate people. They don't see the thriving culture, beauty, richness of this continent and all the people that make up the continent, right?
Yeah, and the thought of we are not capable of running our affairs is just kills you. You know, we are capable. We have a super smart people. You know, we have educated people who could do the work. So we don't want to get a consultant from the West all the time to deal our manners. So it's just you know, it is hard. So I hope my lifetime I could at least see some transformation where we manage our matter as Africa. We make sure we do our things in our way.
So before we go, give me a little bit about how the Yale World Fellows was what kind of experience was that?
I was very fortunate to meet one friend of mine who's Sarah Lulu.
Yes, we love Sarah Lulu. She's
a sister to me, and she really transformed my life in US, and she's a few people you should have in your life, you know, you as a root of your life, you know, you grow as a tree, and I think she's the one who opened me opportunity in Yale and support me to be here, and you know, I got whole new world. I got support from different. I'm doing so much of my dreams. We working in a Yale Law School, a program, a human rights curriculum in our high school. I'm working with Jackson Institute to create a business, social businesses. We hoping to work with a public health school. So it's just so many doors open to transform and really do something concrete in my village and to sustain and transform as a state where you can show the model of independence, the women's rights, you know, children's rights. We respect everyone. We have a large number of youth, child soldiers. They in our community. They're part of taking care of community. So it's to get an academic level of support and understanding. It's huge. It's huge, and it opened my eyes. And it's in the same time, it's a time where I can come and be more relaxed and think in the future and for how I can move my community forward. It's not only running and feeding and taking care of daily, you know, resources or daily needs, but how we can do more than that, how we can sustain, and how we can transform.
Well, I'm so glad that you got to come and talk to me today. And Sarah Lulu is the gateway.
Yeah.
She's the gateway. Everybody she has introduced me to, I have Belgique, Babz. All these folks she has introduced me to have become part of my family. Like I think about them as if they belong to me and you. So Sarah has really been amazing in that regard, you know, and she belongs to me too. So
she's very unique human being.
Yeah, she's
one of those who runs the show and does everything, but never get the credit.
Yeah, and doesn't want it.
Yeah, she doesn't want it. So
she doesn't want it. She doesn't want it. So I am grateful for her presence in my life that brought me to you and all the work that you're doing and your mother and everybody. So we're going to keep this going. We're going to keep it going, and we're going to connect some more, and you're going to come back and update, and we're just going to do whatever we can to support. We're going to reach back to Africa. This is, you know, that's a dream of mine, to just figure out a way to reach back to Africa, and you are that connection for me now. So I'm going to reach back. I'm going to be Somalian, just like I'm Jamaican. I'm going to be Somalian now. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And happy Ramadan.
Happy Ramadan.
Ramadan Kareem.
Ramadan Kareem, and welcome to back to the continent.
All right, Harry, I'm gonna play us out. We good?
Love.